Where are we going to start? We're going to start on Zion Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top. We learned that the person that does the Bedika, that does the search, needs to also say Kol Chamira. He needs to be Mavatal all the Chametz. So we said, why does he do it then? We said the other times he won't remember. We said, why doesn't he do it at the time when he's starting to burn the chametz? Because that's a good time for which we actually do it twice. But why doesn't he do it then? So we said at that time, the 6th hour. Rashi learns the 6th hour means the beginning of the 6th hour, which is exactly an hour before the real lesson, where it's rabbinically also. So we said that, once it comes the time of the Yisr, you can't be mavatala because the Torah throws it into your possession, even though you have no rights to it because it's asr ba'ana. So these are from the Shnei Dvarim She'ein B'Shus L'Adam V'Asar Kosov K'Yem B'Shus. There's 2 things that aren't really yours, but the Torah makes it yours. You're going to try to be mavatala. What are you gaining? The Torah throws it back at you. You don't have the rights to it to be mavatala. So, in other words, you violate the prohibition anyway. So we said, well, let's do it at the 6th hour when it's only Asim Midrabanan. So we said, no, over there it's also considered yours, even though you don't want it then. Okay, now we're holding Dam Rav Gidel Amar Rav Chia Bar Yosef Amar Rav Gidel. Send us in the name of Rav Chia Bar Yosef, in the name of Rav. Makadish Misheshay Salamayla Fila Bechite Kardanais and Cheshin Lakadushin. Someone marries a woman, and when he marries her, he could use money as the kedusha. So what is he? He doesn't have to be real money. It doesn't have to be a ring. It could be something of value. Shavakasa. So let's say he gives her chite kardanaisa, which is wheat, probably Kurdistan, something hard, some sort of hard wheat, which doesn't typically become chametz, hard grained. So we say that it's not a good marriage. We're talking about that he marries her in Erev Pesach. Of all times. I couldn't find the less busy time. So he gives her this chiti kadanai. So we say that it's asr ba'ana and it's not a good kedushin. So the problem is that 1 second. It's only asr midrabanan. Rashi learns Sheishay Salamayla means before the actual full 6th hour. It means the beginning of the 6th hour. Only Asim Midirabanan. Midiraisa, he married her. Midirabanan, he didn't. So Rashi explains that called the Makadash Adaita Dirabanan Makadash Vehefka best in Hefka. They mifkir money. The best then takes away. I just read the last words of a Rashi there. It's as if the rabbis remove his ownership of that money, and it's as if he didn't give her anything, and therefore it's not a good condition. Yeah, there was a what happened? There was a story of Mamzerim, a mother that wasn't divorced, and she married a woman. She married another man without a divorce, and the children that were born were Mamzerim. So it's a big argument in Eretz Yisrael on what to do with this. The chief rabbis were involved. Anyway, I think about 60 years ago. So one of the heterim that came up was that if you give the woman, if the original husband gives the woman a get in a way that only works rabbinically, so how does it work rabbinically? They say is that since the whole marriage is based on the rabbis, so if a get works rabbinically, you throw it into her, there's a chotzer or something like that. There's ways of doing it. Oh, you give a shliach and you mavatal the shliach. So the rabbis take away the original kedushin, and there was no marriage there. So, if you can get rid of the marriage with this trick, the rabbis take away the original kedushin because the whole marriage was only with the intention that it should be according to the rabbis. So then the woman was never married first; she wasn't a married woman, and they were able. They did this, I think, to be mater, and then I believe the Rebbe commented on this that it wasn't acceptable to do things like that. There's a lot of politics involved. Okay. Well, it's based on this Rashi that's called the Mekadesh Adaita the Rabbanon Mekadesh, Vehefka Bezdin Hefka. The rabbis make the money that was given Hefker, and really it wasn't his money, and she never received anything. Okay. The Labasari Surah, the Gemara now asks, Labasari Surah, Lematzim Mavatalai. After the prohibition, you can't be Mavatalai. You can't say, what are we saying over here? The reason why you can't do the bittul, the kol chamir, to say that all the chametz that's in my possession is like the dirt. Why can't I do that after the 6th hour? This is because it's the Zman Isser. It's too late. So Gemara asks, you can't do it after the Zman Isser? Vatanya, we have a brisa. Based on measures, someone is sitting and learning, and he's in the base measures. He remembers, I have chametz at home. He can nullify it in his heart. Says, well, that chametz is like the dirt, ka'afra da'ar. And once it's like the dirt, so it's not a prohibition. Echad Shabbos, Echad Yom Tov. Whether it's on Shabbos or whether it's on Yom Tov, he's able to do that. So the Gemara says like this: Bishlei Mishabbos, Mishkachos Lakin Shekol Arbas Liyas B'Shabbos. We get the case on Shabbos because Erev Pesach was Shabbos, and what's he supposed to do? Burn the chametz? He can't burn it because it's Shabbos. So Mavatli believe it. You say a quick Kol Chamira, and you're fine. Yom Tov. But what are we talking about Yom Tov? Which Yom Tov falls out on Erev Pesach? It must be Yom Tov that's Pesach. It says you can do it in Pesach. Mevatli believe on Pesach. Basari Suruhu. How could you be Mevatli? You just told me a whole story that once it's the Zman Isser, the Torah puts it into your possession, you can't be Mevatli it anymore. You don't have the ability to nullify it. Here you're saying that on Yom Tov Mevatli believe. Ravacha Bar Yaakov says, Hacha b'talmud she'eshot nei Rabbi Yaskinan. Here we're dealing with the student that's in the Beis Medrash. V'niskar she'esh isa megolgelas b'teich beisei. He remembers, I put the flour and the water together and it's starting to rise. I forgot to put it in the oven. It's almost 18 minutes. And he's afraid that it's going to become chametz. Yeah, you could be mevatel it before it becomes aser. Yeah, once it becomes aser, then it's a problem. But before it becomes aser, you could be mevatel it. I'll prove it to you. It says he was sitting in the Beis Medrash. What does it have to be sitting in the Beis Medrash? Means that he's not able to go bake it. That's the concern. He's stuck somewhere. Otherwise, if it's mamash and Yom Tov, why does it have to be? Why does it tell me where it is? Trying to tell me that he's stuck in a situation he can't get out to fix it. So we say that he's mevatlin believer. Shmamina. Okay, so we had a question from a brisa that seemed to tell us that you could be mevatel chametz even after the zman isur. You could make it nullified even after the time that it's prohibited. And it turns out that over there you weren't being mevatel chametz. Over there you were being mevatel flour and water before it becomes hot. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna Amar Rav. Rabba bar Rav Huna says in the name of Rav. Apas she'ifsha. You have moldy bread. Kiven sherab matzah muteres. Once you've increased the usage of matzah, then this becomes mutter. Let's see what's going on over here. Funny story. Does bread become mutter? What's going on? Hechidami. What's the case? If you know that it's chametz, what happens if you have a lot of usage of matzah? It makes this mutter. This is chametz. Elad layadin by chametzi matzi. Okay, must be that you don't know. And somehow we're going to follow a majority here because you don't know what this is. My area ki rabsa matzah, filo kilay rabsa matzah nami, nasal basar basar. Okay, apparently we're talking about like a bread box. And we're discussing, was the box used majority for chametz or majority for matzah? So we say it's used majority for matzah. If it's used majority for matzah, then we say that this loaf of bread that's now spoiled, that's now moldy, is really matzah because we follow the majority of what the usage of this box. The Gemara now asks, why should I follow the majority of the usage? I should just follow the last usage. What was it used for last? And now I open up the box and what's in there? I'm not going after the majority. I'm going after what was the latest. Milay Tanan, was it not taught? You may be familiar with the following Gemara. It's in Elam Metzias. Was it not taught? Ma'is shenimtza lifnei seicher behema, loyla ma'isa. Bahar abayas, chulin. Yishlayim b'shas regel ma'isa b'shayim ma'isa shana chulin. Okay. If you find money in Yerushalayim, so a lot of the money in Yerushalayim is Ma'isa Sheni money. Ma'isa Sheni means that it needs to be, it's the second time. People take this money, they take their grain, and instead of bringing it itself to Yerushalayim, they redeem it on money and they bring it to Yerushalayim. And in Yerushalayim, they spend it on food items. So one of the things that they spend it on is a carbon shlamim. They go and buy animals. They bring the animal as a shlamim, and the shlamim is eaten by the owners and by the kayanim. Everyone gets a portion of that. That's what they would do. So if you would go into a place where they sold animals, the seichrei behema, the money in there is either from the purchaser or from the seller. If it's from the purchaser, then it's probably Ma'aser Sheni money, because that's the money that they were using. Once they buy the animal, then the money becomes chulin because it's been exchanged for the animal. So then it fell from the seller, and the seller would be chulin. The only thing is that when you find the money there, it's either from the buyer or from the seller. Because of that doubt, we consider it Ma'aser Sheni. It's either 50-50. We consider it Ma'aser Sheni. Sveika l'chumra. Okay, so that seichrei behema is always considered Ma'aser Sheni. Let's say you find money on the Har HaBayis, on the Temple Mount. So most of the year, the money in Yerushalayim is not Ma'aser Sheni. Most of the year, the money in the money that's buying animals is probably Ma'aser Sheni money. But in Yerushalayim itself, it doesn't mean it's Ma'aser Sheni money. So most of the year, Yerushalayim, the money that's found in Yerushalayim would not be Ma'aser Sheni. The only problem is the holiday season. The regel, everyone comes to Yerushalayim with their Ma'aser Sheni money to spend it. That's the time when it's going to be Ma'aser Sheni. However, since most of the year it's not, so if you find it on the Har HaBayis, it doesn't matter when you found it. You found it on the time of, whether you find it on the time of the holiday, or you find it the rest of the year, it's always chulin, because we follow the majority of the year. However, in Yerushalayim itself, then we make a difference. If it's a time of the holiday, then it's considered Ma'aser. In the rest of the year, it's considered chulin. The Amar Rav. Oh. No, that when he said that people always check the wallet, that was telling me in Elam Metzias, that was telling me that it wasn't Yesh Shalei Midas, it was Midas. Those were the kashas on Abaya. Yeah, over there we had kashas on Abaya. We said over there, Moyes Mufazar, you're allowed to take it. Why are you allowed to take it? It's Yesh Shalei Midas. The guy doesn't know he dropped it. The answer, no, he knows he dropped it because he feels the weight in his wallet. No, because they don't have a simon on the money. We're talking about the spell. So, V'amar Rav Shmaya bar Zeira, my timer. Rav Shmaya bar Zeira says, what's the reason why Yerushalayim, you don't follow the majority of the year? Because it's swept. Yerushalayim is swept. Places over here mentions why is it swept? Because they didn't want any shratzim to be around. So what he's saying over here? No, I don't know if that's what he's saying. No, that's not what he's saying. But it was swept for whatever reason. They swept the streets. I'm sorry? Yeah, you don't need an excuse. So, Alma, whatever the case is, Amrinan kamay kamayazli leivani achrininu. Achnami nema kama azal v'hayda. Just like in Yerushalayim, we say that the streets are swept every day. And therefore, we don't follow the majority of the year. We follow just what was the latest thing, which is right now. What's today? Is today a regal? Then we'll follow the regal. If it's the rest of the year, we don't say that it came from some other time. You follow what was the latest usage. What was the latest we were holding. So too by the bread box. We shouldn't say that you follow the majority of the usage. Oh, you used it more times for matzah than it's matzah. No, you should follow the latest time. Why? Because when you open up a box, the bread box, you take out the old stuff, you put in the new one. You clean it out. You don't leave the old stuff there. No. It's an interesting story here. Here the bread is moldy. We're not going to say that it was the most recent. So then what are you telling me that you follow the majority of the usage? If it's sort of like make up your mind. You told me that if it's Rav Samatza, if the majority of the usage of this is matzah, then it's going to be matzah. But no, it can't be matzah. It's from before because it has mold on it. What happened is, it's not the first day of Pesach. It's the 7th day of Pesach, and it's moldy. So Rabsa Yemei Matzah, there's a lot of days of matzah there that would allow this to become moldy, even though it's matzah and it was used recently. But because it's not the first day and it took a few days, now it's already well into Pesach, so it could be moldy, even though it's matzah. Okay. Yachi Pshita. So then what's the chiddush over here? The Gemara says, no, it's very moldy. Since it's very moldy, then I should say that it's real chametz, because it's very moldy. It probably comes from before Pesach. It's not just a 5-day mold. This is a 20-day mold. So Kamash Malan, it's coming to tell me that no, even though it looks like a 20-day mold, it's not really that. It's what happened was it was on the bottom. Every day they put in hot matzah. The heat and the moisture that probably comes along with the heat caused the mold to grow. And the fact that there's a lot of mold is not because it's 20 days ago. A lot of mold is because the condition that it was in allowed the mold to grow faster. Okay. And we asked Lina Basar, and now the Gemara asks, but do you really go after the latest? What was the latest thing that it was used for? But Tanya, we have a brisa. Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda Imer. Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda says, Teva shenishtamshu by my school and umais meiser. A box that's holding chulin money, and it's used to hold meiser money. Imreif chulin, imreif meiser. You follow what the majority of its usage is. If you don't know what the certain money is. The Gemara asks, you said before that you follow the latest usage, not the majority. Why don't we follow the latest usage over here? You used it for both. You don't remember which one was last. Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. There's a Magen Avraham that says you're not supposed to kasher an oven for milchik deflation because it gets confusing. So you don't remember what was the latest thing you use it. You just keep kashering back and forth. You're supposed to designate it. No, but you may now. I kashed it, right? What was my last usage? Oh, it was fleshik. Okay, so you put in the meatballs. No, your last was a pizza. So, okay, so here we say that you don't know what the last one is. So then you go by the majority. I don't know if that's what you do by the oven. Rav Zvid Amar Kegain Shenishtamsha Bat Tziburin Tziburin. It said you use it for both at the same time, but you wrap it up. Each one was wrapped, little small sacks of these coins, of that coin, pouches. Rav Papa Amar Kegain Dashkach Beduma. Papa says we're talking about it was found in a little crevice inside the box. So I can't say that I cleaned it out and I can follow the last one because could be this one was there much earlier and it was never cleaned out. Okay. This next sugya, very beautiful sugya. And I think this is the source for the whole discussion of brachas. What bracha we say on mitzvahs. Very interesting source. Very famous places in here. And there's a Chubas of Rajba that gives a bunch of reasons. Let's see how this works. I'm Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, "Habaydik tzarich sheyivarech." Someone that does bedikas chametz has to make a bracha. Question: what's the Gemara's chiddush over here? Every mitzvah you make a bracha. Well, it could be that the bedikas chametz isn't really the mitzvah. The real mitzvah is to destroy the chametz. So, and then there's other explanations as well. My mevarech, what bracha do you say when you do bedikas chametz? Rav Papi Amar Mishmei Derava Amar Al. Oh my gosh, there's different gersayos here on the side. The one say the my Gemara, which is how I read it, levar chametz. You say levar. Yeah, they're quoting the Rif, the Rosh. Rav Papa Mishmei Derava Al Biyar chametz. Let's just read it as it's printed. You either say Sheikh Deshana b'mitzvayse v'tzivano levar chametz, to destroy. Who commanded us, v'tzivano, and commanded us to destroy chametz, or you say that Asher Kedeshanu sanctified us b'mitzvayse with his mitzvahs v'tzivano and commanded us al biyar chametz concerning the destruction of chametz or destroying chametz, concerning destroying chametz, commanded us concerning not to destroy but concerning destroying chametz. So, which one do you say? Do you say concerning, or do you say to destroy? If we say levar, to destroy, who commanded us to destroy, then it's clearly talking about what you're about to do. Command us to destroy chametz, and here I go, I'm going to destroy the chametz. And one of our issues is that a bracha needs to be made. The issue here is over lasiyasa, before you perform the mitzvah. That's how you do a bracha. We'll see soon. Over lasiyasa means before. We'll get the translation of that, but it means before you do the mitzvah. So we're looking to recite a bracha that's going to mean that I'm about to do the mitzvah. Keep ligi bal bir. The question is concerning the destruction. Is that mar savar mi karamashma? One says that he commanded us concerning albir, concerning destroying chametz, and which I have just burnt. It sounds like you just burnt it. And one says no, it means concerning destroying chametz, which you're about to do. Well, that term al beer, what does it sound like? Does it sound like you just burnt it, or does it sound like you're about to burn it? And we'd like it to sound like you're about to burn it. But it's machlekes, so therefore it's not so clear if that's what you should say. So levar is for sure good. The question is al beer. Look at that other girsa. The same thing. They just turn around the names of them. It's the same thing. Okay.
So does this mean that before the takana of the Rabbanim to search for chametz, you would make this bracha before mavato in your thought?
Interesting. I don't think there was ever a takana to be mavato.
No. Well, biblically, you can mavato.
Right.
The takana of the Rabbanim is to search for.
Right.
So I'm asking
Yeah.
If you were going to mavatal in your heart, is this a bracha you'd make before that?
No, I don't think so. Because bedikas chametz is a detail of destroying the chametz. I gather the chametz together and I burn it. This is the beginning of burning chametz. So the bedika is part of the destruction. It's the first part of the mitzvah of destroying chametz. The bittul chametz is not a way of performing the mitzvah. It's a way of avoiding the mitzvah, I think. It's a way of avoiding the prohibition. I didn't really destroy it. I made a statement. Not mine, whatever. Did I really destroy it? I didn't destroy it. Destroying is the mitzvah, to destroy the chametz. I think that's the pshat. Performing a mitzvah. Now, the complication, Reb Naftali, is if at the time that I destroyed the chametz, if I really did the mitzvah of tashbisa, of destroying the chametz, did I really perform that mitzvah? Or maybe tashbisa was only in the time of the prohibition. That's a discussion, and then this I'm also avoiding. I'm also, even now because I burnt it earlier, which I have to, but I'm avoiding that mitzvah, which would come out that the only way that you'd be able to perform the mitzvah of tashbisa is if you kept it too long, and it was it sounds a little strange, but anyway. But I don't think there would ever be a bracha on something that you do in your heart, or a bracha on speech. We're getting ahead of ourselves, except for halal. Maybe the brachas on Shema, but we don't say a bracha on benching. I say Ashek Hashem it's Vanu Levarich Berachas Hamazon Baruch Atah Hashem, or on the Haggadah. That's a discussion. Okay. Let's see. Meisvei. The Gemara has a question. Baruch Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvayse v'tzivanu al hamila. See, you say al hamila by a bris. Now al hamila must mean the future. If it would be the past, then how could you say that? We have a riot to the person that held that you say al bir. It's not a problem of being past tense. There's hasam hechi name over there. You don't have an option because name a lamal. What are you going to say? Lamal, who commanded us to circumcise. If that's not good, because he's not the one that was commanded to do the bris. You're giving the baby to a male, and he wasn't commanded to do the bris. The father was commanded to do the bris. Who commanded him to circumcise? No, it wasn't his mitzvah. Whole discussion over here. If when the male does the bris, if he's doing it as a representative of the father, that's what we would like, and it's considered as the father performing the mitzvah. or if he's doing it as a representative of the Jewish people because the father didn't do the bris and the obligation falls on the Jewish people to do the bris. Yeah, recently we've become more frum. By my first babies, the male never gave me instructions like this. Say I'm making you a shliach, but as time went on, now the males are the male. So you give the male the knife. You say you are my shliach. Just in the last 20 years, we've evolved religiously. So Avia ben Mayakalamema. Okay, so the male doesn't have the mitzvah. What about the father? Gemara says, "Enachanami, you're right. The father, the bracha, the father should say is lamal lasaben. If the father does the circumcision, if the male does the circumcision, then you should say yalamila, because it's not. He wasn't commanded to do it. The Gemara says, "Enachanami, you're right." Okay, Mesri, another question. Baruch Hashem kedeshanu b'mitzvayis v'tzivanu ala shchita, commanded us concerning shchita. Asam nami, the Gemara says, Hechi nemi, nema lishchait. What do you want him to say? Lishchait, that he commanded us to shech. Leisagi b'lavi shachat. The wording over here is a little interesting, but what it means is you can't do that because he wasn't commanded to shech. No one was commanded to shech. It's just if you want to eat, you shech. There's no mitzvah to go around shechting. You're right. So the Gemara says, so that's why you have to say regarding or concerning shechita. You can't say it commanded us to shech. So therefore, Taisvus over here says, no one holds that al beer or al shechita only means past tense. No one holds that. It has to also possibly mean future, because whatever claim you're going to tell me that it's impossible to say lamal, it's impossible to say lishchait, and because how can you say he commanded me to shech? He didn't command me to shech. So therefore, what do you do as a solution? You say a lie. You say, and I'm going to shecht when it really means you did shecht. No, it has to mean that you're going to shecht as well. It's just it usually doesn't mean that. So therefore, we rather you not say that. But if you don't have any option, then you can say it and you say that's what it meant.
Are there any other instances where you make fun of it for you?
I don't know if that would work. Yeah. You can do a mitzvah. Avram Nosson is asking about a shliach for a mitzvah. You can make someone a shliach to go to the chuppah for you, marry the woman. Yeah. She has her shliach there also. 2 other people. No photographer. Yeah, it's a mitzvah to get married, at least for sure for the man.
But isn't this kind of similar to what was being discussed before the Rab Naftali?
No, wait, but
You don't have to have chametz. You don't have to have chametz. It's only if you have a cow and you have chametz, then you have this mitzvah.
Right. But right now I have a command. Now you're asking, shchita. Yeah, right now you don't have to eat the meat. Right now you could go vegetarian. You don't have to eat it. But right now I have to destroy the chametz. Right? I didn't have to have chametz, but I
have it. Okay.
But I have it, so I have to destroy it. The Gemara has a good question now. The Gemara says, Pesach v'kachemaya kalameima. The only the only mitzvahs that you can't make a shliach for are mitzvahs shebegufay. That means I need to put on tefillin. So I make a shliach to put on tefillin. He put on tefillin, but it wasn't my body that put on tefillin. But other mitzvahs you can have a shliach do for you.
okay.
You can even make a shliach to do b'dikas chametz for you. Sounds like fun.
Right, that we know about.
Right. Brush his teeth. Okay, Pesach v'kachemaya kalameima. What about a carbon? A carbon, you have a mitzvah to shech. I think it's the end of Pesachim. We have the brachas that they say when you shechting. The Gemara says, "Enechanami, you're right over there. You should say lishchait, not ala shchita. You should say lishchait. You're right. Just like you said by Mila, by the father. So to over here, you change the bracha if it's a carbon. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. I said, lulav liatzmei mavarach shachianu v'kimanu v'gen al zman hazeh. If you're making the lulav means you're tying it together, right? So you say shachianu, not like latisbai. When you take it to be yaitza, al netilas lulav. Why is al netilas lulav? You should say lital lulav. You're performing the mitzvah, and it's a positive command. It's not like concerning a mitzvah. It's not like it wasn't commanded to you. It's not your mitzvah. No, this is your mitzvah. The problem is that once you picked it up, you were yaitza. So it's actually, the bracha is sort of past tense. You're making a bracha on the past because you picked it up. The Gemara says that's a problem with the brisa though. Because what are you saying? Not like latzispai, you took it to be yaitza. Not like yatza. If you took it, he was yaitza. Must be talking about that you put them together. Okay. Taisus over here asks, according to this, once you pick up the lulav your yaitza, then why are you saying the bracha? The bracha is always supposed to be said before. So Taisus says that you're still involved with the mitzvah because you're going to shake it by halal. You're going to do nanuim. So the mitzvah is not over. So if you're still involved in the mitzvah, you could still say the bracha. But it's also going on the past because you already picked it up. The Gemara says, Enechanami, you're right. It should have said yatza instead of latzis. Mishum de kabayla misna seifa. But if you read further in the Mishnah, you'll see why it said latzis, because it wants to be symmetrical to the next case. Leishev basukah. Leishev basukah. So tanin reisha nami latzis bay, because it's later on it's going to say leishev basukah. So over here it says latzis bay. We will see the tani seifa as it taught in the next part of the. Is this a Mishnah or a Brisa? It's a Brisa. I'm not sure if it's a Mishnah or Brisa. If someone makes a sukkah, says a shachianu. Nichnas leishiba. That's probably the reason why we say shachianu first. No. How does it work? On the first night of sukkahs, do we say no? We say leishiv basukah. First or second? There's a difference between the first night and the second night. I think the first night we say Leisha Basukah first. Yeah. Okay, so that's not going to help me. So, yeah. Yeah, there's a machlekes. If there's a mitzvah to make a sukkah. Right. But I guess you make it on, there's two parts to the mitzvah. According to one opinion, I forget if it's the Rambam, it says that there is a mitzvah actually to build a sukkah. That's a kiyama mitzvah as well, to build the sukkah. So you say shachiano, nichnas leishiva, when you go in to sit in it, to sit in the sukkah. Okay, but which is no problem. There was no problem with leishiv basukah. All we're bringing out over here is that nichnas leishiv, you came inside to perform the mitzvah, as opposed to when you pick up the lulav, you were already yaitza. So why did it say not like latzis? Because it was going to say nichnas leishiv. It's only referring to the verb that it uses when you're going to perform the mitzvah. The Gemara concludes v'hilchas al b'yer chametz. The halacha is that you say al b'yer chametz. And the same is, Rashi points out, the same is with Mila. Gabi Mila Nami, you also say La Mila. Even if it's the father. That's what Rashi says.
I'm sorry, but you're already in the sukkah when you say it. So how are you saying Leisha Basukah?
Maybe this is a raya to the Rambam. The Rambam says you say it before you enter. Yeah, I think the Rambam says that you say it before you enter. Oh, or if the Rambam, if not, then I think he says there's two pshatim what leishiv is. Leishiv means to sit, or leishiv means to enter, to dwell. There's two pshatim there as well. Yeah, everything becomes complicated. Yeah. The kuli alma miyami kara beinan levrucha minalan. Everyone holds that you have to say a bracha before the performance of the mitzvah. Where do we know that from? Dam Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of his teacher Shmuel, Kol mitzvahs mevarach aleim oiver lasiyasan. All mitzvahs you say the bracha before you perform the mitzvah. My mashma da'ayoiver lishna daktumihu. What's the translation? I mean, it's like a funny term. Oiver lasiyasan. The only place I know oiver means that you oiver an avera. You violated. What does oiver mean? Oiver means no. Oiver means before the performance. How do you know that oiver means before? We have psukim that tell me that the word oiver, from the context of the pasuk, it's clear that oiver means before. So that's why we have. It's funny. The Gemara is learning a phrase that Shmuel said. And now we're going to translate that phrase based on psukim. So Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak Damar Krav Vayaretz Achimatz Derech Hakikar Vayaver Sakushi. This is when they killed Avshalom, and they're going to tell David that Avshalom died. Avshalom was David's son, and what happened? He got caught in his hair, right? And they killed him. So Achimatz is running to tell David. Yoav tells him, "Don't go." He says, "No, I'm going to go." Achimatz ben Tzadok, I forgot it. Anyway, he runs ahead of. Yoav sends the Kushi to tell David, and I guess it's an Ethiopian, and Achimatz runs ahead to tell him. But Yaver is a Kushi. He passed by the Kushi. That means he went ahead. That means he preceded him. He was coming before him. Abaya Amar Mehach. Abaya says he learned from here. V'u'aver lifneim. This week's parsha is appropriate. Vayishlach. Yaakov divides the group into two and to meet Esav, and v'u'aver lifneim. He goes in front of them. That means he's preceding him. The king Mashiach will go before them, and Hashem will be on their head. The Shekhinah will be on their head. So Vayavar means to proceed. Be'Rav Amri, in the house of Rav, the yeshiva of Rav, they said Chutz min Tvila v'Shofar, except for Tvila, the mikveh, and Shofar. That's the exception of where you say the bracha afterwards. Let's go a little further before we discuss the Tosfos. Bishlema Tvila. We understand why by the mikveh you have to say the bracha afterwards. Why by shofar do you say the bracha after shofar? Maybe the sound isn't going to come out, so you don't want to say a bracha beforehand because it's going to be a bracha levatala. How do you know that it's going to work out for shchita and mila? Rav Chizda says drop the shofar part of that statement. It's only tvila. Tanya Namihachi was also taught in the Brisa. Taval va'ala. He goes to the mikveh, he gets up. That when you get out of the mikveh, when you pick your head up, you say ala tvila, not beforehand. So, first of all, Tosfos over here quotes the Gainim. It's a very important Tosfos. If you look ala tvila, he says that we're talking about tvilas ger. When a ger goes to the mikveh, so when's he supposed to say a bracha? When he's not Jewish? No, he has to say the bracha after he converts. He doesn't have any mitzvah beforehand. So he goes to the mikveh. When he comes out, he says the bracha. But other tvilas, he says they can say a bracha. They can say a bracha before. It doesn't apply to that. It's only referring to a get. That's the Gaonim's job. Sorry, Yossi. Right. Yes, he has a good question. He says, why should he say a bracha? The ger, before he went to the mikveh, he wasn't Jewish. When he comes out, he is Jewish, but he went to the mikveh already. So he went to the when he went to the mikveh, was he Jewish or not Jewish? So does he say a bracha? That's an interesting point. I don't know the answer. Apparently, you say the bracha anyway, but I don't know. I have an explanation.
He became Jewish underwater, right?
There's a brisker Rav that says you don't become Jewish underwater. You become Jewish only when you come out. So according to that, that's a problem. That's a problem. We'll have to sakash on the brisker Rav. He says Tevel b'sheretz biyadai. Not Tevel b'sheretz biyadai. If you touch it, he has this thing. If you go to the mikveh, if you're in the water, are you already tahar? Are you only tahar when you pop your head out of the water? I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry. You want to say something? Okay. Taisvis says now that he quotes the Ri that women say the bracha after the mikveh, just like the convert. We didn't make a chiluk between them. Every tefillah, you always say the bracha afterwards. Then he says netilas yadayim also. When you wash your hands, we also say the bracha afterwards. By the way, the Rambam doesn't hold this. If you look, the Rambam always says that you say the bracha and wash your hands. We never do that. We always wash our hands and we say al netilas yadayim. It's exactly the opposite of this whole rule of over l'asiyasa. So then Tosfos says a good point. He says, but it's for us, it's possible because you say the bracha before you dry the hands, and the drying of the hands is very important. So you wash the hands, while your hands are wet, you say the bracha. You're not finished the mitzvah of washing because you didn't dry them yet. Drying is part of that. No. You say them when they're wet. Right? Oh, it's supposed to be completely dry. Because of the drying, you're not supposed to touch bread with your, not you won't make the bread chametz. You're not supposed to eat bread with wet hand. Okay. Then he brings another pshat. Before you go to the mikveh, you may be afraid of the water, and so you don't say the bracha then. And once you're in the water, then he's naked. The way they do it, at least by converts, is they go like this. It shouldn't be libere serva. They just go, they're in the water. They say the bracha in the water. And they just put their arms like this. No, you separate the heart from the erva by going like this. That's the... Okay, now we say la'araner. That you do the search to the light of a candle. Why to the light of a candle? Today, by the way, they use flashlights. But why to the araner? I'm sorry. You use a candle? Good. Where do we know this from that you're supposed to use a candle? Amar Rav Chisda says, very interesting source. Huge gzeir shava. Mitzia from Mitzia for chipas to chipas and chipas to neris to ner. All of these, we'll see the psukim that it's a string of gzeir shavas that lead us to a candle. So what are these psukim? Mitzia and Mitzia. The ksiv hacha shivas yom sarli matzi v'betechem. It says that 7 days you shall not find chametz in your house. Ksiv hasam v'yichapis begadol hechel v'katan kala v'yimatzi. They searched the bags for Yosef's goblet, and they started with the oldest and they ended with the youngest, Binyamin's sack, and they found it. Okay, so now we have a pasuk that has both the word vayimatze and the word chipas in it. Now, u'metzia mechipas didei, v'chipas mineris. Now we learn from the chipas that it says there to the chipas of neris. At that time, I will search Jerusalem with candles. The neris miner. Now, candles or lamps, we learn from that to the lamp. Diksiv ner elikim nishmas adam. Is it ner elikim? Neravaya. Neravaya nishmas adam. Chipas kol chadri batan. Searches all the innards. Okay, so the Gemara is going to ask why we need the last one. Candles, lamps was enough. We don't need candle. candles, lamps is good enough. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, it was taught in the yeshiva Rabbi Shmuel, Leila Yudal Beitin Aschamas Laraner, Af Bishain Rayel Davar Zeichel Davar. Even though we don't have a source, but we do have a zeicher, allusion to the source. So Nemar Shivas Yam Salim Matzei Vaymer Bechapis Begad Lechel V'Katan Kala Vaymer Beisi Chapis Shalem Beneres Vaymer Vaynish Masadam Chayfis. Okay, same source, same story. Pasuk from Pasuk to Pasuk until we get candles is now associated with searching for chametz. My Vaymer, why do we need the last Pasuk that says Ner Havaya Nish Masadam? V'Chitema. If you're going to say the pasuk that says Ba'isa he at that time Achapis es Yerushalayim Baneres, I will search Yerushalayim with candles. Hi Ba'isa he Kulahu the Kamarachmana. It's a leniency that what Hashem is doing. Hashem is being kind. I'm not going to search with a torch, because if I use a torch, that's going to tell me that I'm going to do a good search. What is he searching for? Hashem is searching Yerushalayim for the sins. He's going to cleanse it from the sins. The nafesh neratuva, it's going to give it too much light. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to overlook things. Ela ben the shraga, I'm going to use a light of a candle. The zuter tvei, which is much smaller. Why? I'll only find the big sins. I won't find the small sins because I'm using a candle, and a candle doesn't give off as much light. If I use a huge torch, a flood lamp, so it's going to show me everything. I don't want to see everything. So he's talking about when Hashem is searching Yerushalayim for its sins, he says he's going to overlook that. Now we're jumping to chametz. So maybe when it comes to Hashem searching Yerushalayim, he wants to use a lamp. He doesn't want to use a torch. But that doesn't tell me that I shouldn't use a torch for chametz. I'll just be able to see more. So Tashma Neravai Nish Masadim. So therefore, we bring another pasuk that says that Neravai Nish Masadim, that it doesn't have to do with a lot of light or a small amount of light. That's what we're using. We're using a lamp. It says Chayfes Kol Chadri Batim. So this pasuk could have been enough. Chayfes Kol Chadri Batim. The same as Chapis es Yerushalayim. We have two psukim for the same thing. I said it a little different. I said lamps versus lamp. Here it's searching for sins. Versus the lamp that searches the insides. Yeah, places mentions this. Okay, Tan Rabbanan. Start in the Braying. You don't do b'dikas chametz not to the light of the sun, not to the light of the moon, not to the light of a torch. Ela la'ara ner, only to the light of a candle. Because the light of the candle is perfect, is very good for searching. Even though I don't have a support, I don't have a real source, a compelling source, but I do have an allusion to it. 7 days you should not find yeast or leaven in your house. All of those sources that teach us that you use a candle. What are you talking about that you can't use the sun? If you're talking about that you're in a courtyard and there's the sun is in the courtyard and there's crumbs there. You don't have to check a courtyard. The ravens are going to come and eat all the bread. So what are you telling me? You can't use the sun. You don't need any bedika at all. We're talking about that it's an open portico. It's not really in the courtyard. It's just that the wall it doesn't have walls. It just has a roof, but no walls. Rava says that you don't need a candle there because it has so much light. You can just search over there without a candle. We're talking about that there's a sunlight in a room, a skylight. Now, where in the room are you searching? If it's directly under the skylight, that's good enough. That's like an achsadra. We said a roof, a portico. or like a gazebo. So over there, the light comes in. You can search anywhere over there. So here too, the light's coming down. You can search anywhere. You don't need a candle. Ella, let's start. We're talking about along the walls, along the side, not under the. You can't use a torch. The shine will be bright. Kanayim miyadai lai. Rays will be coming out of it. V'sham chavi nuzin, over there will be hiding his power. And it says, Lama tzadikim daim pnei hashchina, Lama tzadikim daim pnei hashchina. What are tzadikim compared to in front of the light of the shchina? Kener b'fnei avuka, like a candle in front of the torch. That means a torch gives off more light. And Rava says that for Avdala you should use a torch. You're telling me that candles are better, but the avuka, a torch, gives off more light. What's the difference? A torch or candles? A torch has more than one wick. Candle just has one wick. Or maybe a torch is oil. That's another pshat. But Pashtus, we learned that it's more than one wick. Huh? No, a stick candle. Like wax. Yeah. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says the candle is used because you can put the candle closer to the crevices to be able to see. The torch, you can't get into those little places. Rav Zvid says that the candle, the light shines in front of you. The torch, the light shines back on you. It makes your face bright, but it doesn't make what's in front of you bright. I'm not sure what the pshat is over there. Maybe because it's too bright, it's more blinding. Maybe that's what it means. I don't know. Rav Papa Amar Hai Bais Hai Loi Bais. Rav Papa says that by the torch, you're going to be afraid of starting a fire, so you're not going to bring it close. Ravina Amar Kol Amar Hai Mashach Nahara by Miktaf Ektufe. The candle is more stable. The torch goes up and down, and it could be you'll miss something doing that. Okay. Kol Makam Shemachnisin Chulu. Any place where you don't bring chametz in doesn't need bedika. Kol Makam Lasui Mai. Why do we have to say Kol Makam any place? Lasuya de Tana Rabbanon. We already said that any place that doesn't have chametz doesn't need a bedika. Then we say Kol Makam, then okay. It's coming to include what it says, what the Brisa says. If you have holes in the wall, so if they're high, the holes are too high to use, or the holes are too low to use comfortably, the Gag HaYetzia, a slanted roof of a small hut, the Gag HaMigdal, or the top of a cabinet, usually underneath, in the cabinet you use, but not the top. Refus bakar, or a stable for animals, balulin, or a chicken coop, or matvein, vaitzis yain, vaitzis shemen, or a place where you keep grain, or a place where you keep wine and oil. Ein tzrichem bedika, those don't require bedikas chametz. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, Mita achilekas b'teich habayis umapsekes tzricha bedika. If you have a bed that's in the middle of the room, that's dividing the room, so you need to search under it. Rashi says, it's just orcha de mil, so it's just giving you an example. Mapsekes means that there is a space between the ground and the bed, because there's legs there that are holding the bread up. You have to check on it. Over here it says, Reb Shimon Gamliel says, tzricha bedika. The Gemara asks for a minu, but there's a contradiction. What are you telling me? That there's holes in walls, and if it's too high to use, you don't have to check it. Or too low to use, you don't have to check it. Here we have another brisa that says if there's a hole between two houses, so each one searches as far in as he could reach. And if you can't reach it, then you're just mevatel. But you see, you have to search the holes in the walls. Yeah, we have holes in the walls sometimes behind the door. The doorknob sometimes breaks a hole, and so little kids say, "Oh, garbage!" Oh, they put something in there to cut a hole on the bottom to take it out. We had that once. We had to take the car keys out because one of the babies thought it was like a perfect slot to put the car keys in. Okay. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer, Mita Chelekas Patecha Bayis, Veitzim Avanim Sedurim, Tachtel Mafsekes, Eina Tricha Bedika. So the problem here is Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says exactly the opposite of what he said before. If there's a bed dividing a room, it doesn't require Bedika. Before he said it requires Bedika. Or if there's wood and or stones that are piled up, but there's an area underneath it, it says it doesn't need a Bedika on that area. So the Gemara says, Kasha Mita, Mita Kasha Chayrin Achayrin. There's a question, a contradiction in Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, the story with the bed. You have to check under it. And there's a question on the contradiction with the holes. We said the hole's too high, too low, you don't check. And here it says you check as far as you can reach. The Gemara answers, the holes is not a problem. That's talking about it's too high to use, too low to use. This is when it's just right. That hole that's just right, the hole in the wall, it's just right to use. So that you have to check. Mita like kasha, and by the bed it's also not a question. One is when it's very high, it's the legs are high, and therefore you can actually use underneath it. Here it's very low. Yeah, I know there's a space, but it's too low to be able to use, so therefore you don't have to check them. You don't have to search wine cellars, wine storage. Oil storage don't need, but wine storage do need. Here we're talking about you're using that during a meal. So you're going to get the wine during a meal, like we said before. So then the oil also using a meal. You go to get oil. You hear what's going on? When you prepare the oil before the meal, you know how much oil you're going to serve. That's what you're going to serve. When it comes to wine, you open another bottle, As the party goes on, there's no limit over there. It's not like we said we're only going to drink this, but no, it's going well. You take out more wine. So therefore, by an Eitzes Yayin, people go to use it if that's where it is. If it's nearby, then people will go to get more wine. Okay, let's leave it right here. Shakaya.
You mentioned, I don't want to deviate a little